questions?
Tim, are there any concerns though that if the city creates more of these full-time permanent jobs that the total number of jobs would decrease just to be able to afford that?
No, I don't think there should be any concern about that. The city last year, and similarly over the past number of years, last year the city budgeted for 2,500 to 3,000 positions that it hadn't filled. They're sitting there, gapped positions. The city could just begin, in terms of providing full-time employment, start there. Jobs for our members that work part-time, and jobs for other people in the community for the first-time opportunity at the city. The city could be a model employer in terms of providing more stable employment for part-time workers. As one of our members indicated, she's worked at private call centers where there is more stable minimum guarantees of hours, minimum commitment to hours, so the workers have more stable work lives, they have more stable home lives, and the private sector in many areas seems to be getting this. I think it's time for the city to be taking a look at this so their workers are more stable at work and have more stable home lives.
When you say stable at work, can you talk about, for part-timers, can you talk about what you're talking about? You're talking about a set minimum hours, set pay, set benefits, what kind of things are you talking about here?
We're talking about a minimum commitment to hours of work. We have 3 part-time units with varied scheduling language in varied language on scheduling, but we want the city to commit to at least a minimum minimum commitment back. We have some members that give 24/7 availability a few days a week or even all week with 0 commitment in return. So we want to be able to resolve some of these issues and provide some more stability to our members' work lives.
Given the budget hole that the city is in, and even yesterday's announcement, they need $2.6 billion to fix up TCH, and there's a shortfall in this budget. I mean, how realistic do you think it is that your demands will be met?
The good thing about this is I don't think there's a big financial impact. The city hires X number of part-time workers depending on what the service is, and it's a question of how they distribute those hours and how they organize those hours. They can organize those hours, and in some areas they do better than others. They can organize those hours so they give their workers stability in terms of the number of hours they get. There ought not to be a huge financial impact on fixing these things.
If the city does,
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in respect for the city and the library, they would actually gain a huge efficiency if there was less part-time workers. The allocation of all those part-time variable hours to the part-timers takes an enormous amount of administrative time, and that would certainly be a huge efficiency gained, which would have a positive effect on the service delivery.
So all of our members give over to the employer what their availability is, when they can work. It would be more efficient if there was a more stable structure for all of our part-time workers in terms of when they can work. And we don't have a part-time long-term care worker here, but we represent a large number of part-time care workers that work in Toronto's 10 homes. Sometimes, because of the way that's structured, and we want to sit down and work out resolutions to these issues, sometimes the way it's structured, either no one shows up and people work short, there aren't enough staff, or indeed a couple of people show up because we have to work out those efficiencies.
What does the city say about all this? What's their stance? This has been going on for 10 years.
Well, in some areas it's been going on for longer than that. We're engaging with the city. We're at the bargaining table, so we want to have those conversations, and we've started having those conversations, but we want the city to actually make some commitments. This is an opportunity for us at bargaining, actually, to resolve some of these issues, to provide more stability.
How would you describe the bargaining process right now? How is it going?
We're at the bargaining table in both Local 416 and Local 79. There's a conciliator engaged in the process now, so we're continuing to meet.
Is it going smoothly though at this point? Like how?
We've got conciliator at the table, and we're meeting with the city. Today is about bringing some light, some public awareness to how part-time workers at the city are treated. As I said, the city would suggest that all their jobs are stable jobs with access to benefits, when for many of our part-timers they don't have benefits and they don't have a commitment to hours of work.
I just want to say one thing in response to your question about
Sure.
the fiscal responsibility of the city. We're very cognizant of that. I started working 30 years ago as a precarious worker in the library. So we're talking about long-term trends, as Tim has mentioned, and this is very much tied to the budget process. The City of Toronto has unanimously endorsed a poverty reduction strategy where they're talking about precarious work, yet internally in their own workplace, they're not living up to the leadership that is needed to write that. In the library workers in particular, 86% of our members live in Toronto. We are Torontonians. And if you want us to return to our community, we need that support in our workplaces to do that. And again, the talk at the city has finally arisen around revenue tools and what can happen there, because obviously the City of Toronto is underfunded, and the most vulnerable workers in our workplaces shouldn't bear the brunt of that.
Just to be clear, would you guys be okay with fewer actual number of part-time workers in exchange for more stable hours for the ones that are on staff?
Well, I don't know that we need to go to fewer. It's about distribution, and it's about making sure there's at least a minimum commitment to the workers. The city has, for instance, in our part-time recreation unit, has 3,000 to 3,500 less workers than they had 7 or 8 years ago. So the city already has downsized it to an extent. So I would say, there's kind of two asks that two solutions that represent what our members are going through. Each of the 3 part-time members that talk to you today talk about wanting full-time employment. They're dedicated, they're proud of the work they do for the city, they serve Torontonians in their communities, and they want access to full-time work. They're not part-time. We have part-time workers who that's what they want, but we have other part-time workers who want access to full-time employment. As I said earlier, the city has 2,500 to 3,000 outstanding jobs that were budgeted for last year but not filled. So fill some full-time jobs and make the lives of those that actually continue to work part-time more stable.
And in respect to the stability of the part-time hours, we do have that in the library. Most of the positions are 17.5 hours a week. One of my members has told me, for instance, she's worked at 80 of the 100 libraries. She starts before 9 o'clock in the morning and doesn't get home till after 10 at night, because she's crisscrossing the city, trying to pick up shifts and extra hours in different places just to make enough hours. And like the Local 79 workers, it's not guaranteed at the end of the week that she'll have more than those committed hours. And those committed hours on top of everything else just aren't enough. So again, the city really needs to show some leadership here in creating a workforce that is stable.
Tim, just to go back to the actual general negotiations, you've been part of this process for a while. Is there any noticeable difference, or any difference at all compared under this current regime compared to the previous one or the one before that, in terms of the way the process is going? Do you notice it to be any different, any more open, or is it just the same as always?
I appreciate that there are positive public statements about the commitment of frontline workers at the city. Whether that will have an impact at the bargaining table is yet to be seen. We're in negotiations, we've got a conciliator appointed, so we're going to continue to work through that process as best we can. And again, today is about bringing light to the condition that part-time workers at the city work under. We think the city can be a model employer in providing more stable employment, and that means more stable services for the members, for the public our members serve.
Tim, we've heard the union say in the last few weeks that the city's being aggressive right now. Can you elaborate on that? And wouldn't getting a strike mandate also be seen as aggressive?
Yeah, today's not about that. We've been through that already, and we have a mandate that we want to get collective agreements without a stoppage. Today's talking about the part-time condition of work.
All right. Are there any other questions?